Book 5, the Shurangama Sutra, Kinh Lăng Nghiêm. 5. The enlightenment of others. Ananda adjusted his robe, brought his palms together and prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha. He rejoiced at his good understanding of the mind and, for the benefit of coming generations, bowed again and said, "O great compassionate and world-honored one, I have now awakened to the Dharma gateway to Buddhahood by means of right practice about which I have no more doubt. I have always heard the Buddha speak of bodhisattvas who, before their own liberation, set their minds on freeing others, and of Buddhas who, after their own complete enlightenment, appeared in the world to enlighten others. Though I am not yet liberated, I now vow to deliver all living beings in the Dharma ending age." World-honored one, future generations will gradually move farther away from the Buddha and will meet heretics as many as the sand grains in the Ganges. In order to control their minds for entry into samadhi, what should they do to set up seats of study and learning, bodhimandala, to keep the demon away and avoid failure in their cultivation of the mind set on enlightenment? The Buddha praised Nanda and said, "Excellent, Ananda, excellent. It is good that you ask about the setting up of bodhimayualas for the protection of living beings against failure in the Dharma ending age. Listen attentively to what I now tell you." Ananda and the assembly reverently awaited the holy teaching. Discipline and its three decisive steps. Sila, dhyana, and prajna. The Buddha said, "Ananda, you have always heard me teach about discipline, vinaya, which consists in the practice of three decisive steps, the control of mind, called Sila, which leads to stillness, dhyana, and thence to wisdom, prajna. This is called the threefold study of the supramundane way. Prohibition against carnality. Ananda, why is control of mind called Sila? If all living beings in the 6 worlds of existence abstain from sexual desire, they will not be subject to the continual round of births and deaths. Your practice of samadhi should free you from defilements, but they cannot be eliminated if your lustful mind is not wiped out. Even after you have acquired such wisdom, if you fail to kill sensuality, then when dhyana manifests, you will fall into the way of demons in which their king takes the high. His male subjects the middle and his female subjects the low rank. These demons have their following and boast of having attained the supreme path. After my nirvana, in the Dharma ending age, these subjects of Mara will be found everywhere, will encourage sensuality and will disguise themselves as men of good counsel, Kalyanamitras, and cause living beings to fall into the pit of lust, thereby missing the Bodhi path. You should teach worldly men who practice samadhi to cut off their lustful minds at the very start. This is called the Buddha profound teaching of the first decisive deed. Therefore, Nanda, if carnality is not wiped out, the practice of dhyana is like cooking gravel to make rice. Even if it is boiled for hundreds and thousands of eons, it will be only hot gravel. Why? Because instead of rice grains it contains only stones. If you set your lustful mind on seeking the profound fruit of Buddhahood, whatever you may realize will be carnal by nature. If your root is lustful, you will have to transmigrate through 3 unhappy ways, to the hells of fire, blood and swords from which you will not escape. How then can you find the way to cultivate the Tathagata's nirvana? You should cut off both the sensual body and mind until even the very idea of doing so ceases. Only then can you hope to seek the Buddha's enlightenment. This teaching of mine is that of the Buddha, whereas any other one is that of evil demons, Papayan. Prohibition against killing. Ananda, if living beings in the 6 worlds of existence cease to kill, they will not be subject to the continual round of births. and deaths. Your practice of samdhi should free you from defilements, but if your murderous mind is not cut off, they cannot be eliminated. You may acquire much wisdom, but if you fail to stop killing, when dhyana manifests, you will fall into the way of spirits, in which the high rank is attained by the mighty ghost, Preta, the middle one by flying yaksas and chief ghosts, and the low one by earthbound Rakshasas. These have followers and boas that they have attained the supreme path. After my nirvana, in the Dharma ending age, these ghosts will be found throughout in the world, and will boast of how they feed on flesh, which leads them to realize Bodhi. Ananda, I permit the bhikshus to eat only the 5 kinds of pure flesh which are the product of my transcendental power of transformation and not of animal slaughter. You, Brahman, live in a country where vegetables do not grow because it is too damp and hot and because of all the gravel and rock. I use my spiritual power of compassion to provide you with illusory meat to satisfy your appetite. How then, after my nirvana, can you eat the flesh of living beings and so pretend to be my disciple? You should know that those who eat meat, though their minds may open and realize a semblance of samadhi, are but great Rakshasas who, after this life, will sink back into the bitter ocean of samsara and cannot be my disciples. They will kill and devour one another ceaselessly. How then can they escape from the 3 worlds of existence? In addition, you should teach worldly men who practice samadhi not to kill. This is called the Buddha profound teaching of the second decisive deed. Therefore, Ananda, if killing is not stopped, the practice of dhyana samadhi is like shutting one's ears while crying in the hope that people will not hear one's voice, or like trying to hide something that is already exposed to full view. All bhikshus who live purely and all bodhisattvas always refrain even from walking on the grass. How can they agree to uproot it? How then can those who practice great compassion feed on the flesh and blood of living beings? If bhikshus do not wear garments made of Chinese silk, boots of local leather and furs, and refrain from consuming milk, cream and butter, they will really be liberated from the worldly. After paying their former debts, they will not transmigrate in the 3 realms of existence. Why? Because by using animal products, one creates causes, which are always followed by effects, just like a man who eats cereals grown in the soil, and whose feet cannot leave the ground. If a man can control his body and mind and thereby refrains from eating animal flesh and wearing animal products, I say he will really be liberated. This teaching of mine is that of the Buddha, whereas any other is that of evil demons. Prohibition against stealing. Further, Nanda, if living beings in the 6 worlds of existence cease to steal, they will not be subject to the continual round of births and deaths. Your practice of samadhi should free you from defilements, but if your robber's mind is not wiped out, they cannot be eliminated. You may acquire much wisdom, but if you do not stop stealing, when dhyana manifests, you will fall into the way of devils, in which the high rank is attained by cunning spirits, the intermediate one by evil spirits, and the low one by bedeviled men. These devils have their following and boast that they attain supreme bodhi. After my nirvana, in the Dharma ending age, these devils will be found everywhere in the world. They will hide their perfidy, pose as men of good counsel, and declare that they have won the superior Dharma to deceive the ignorant, who will thus lose their minds. Wherever they pass, they will cause untold miseries to their believers. This is why I teach the bhikshus to beg for food, so that they can overcome cupidity and realize bodhi. They do not cook themselves and pass their remaining years as transitory travelers in the 3 realms of existence to prove their last transmigration without incarnating again. How can thieves who wear the Sangha robe, act as Tathagata mongers and commit karmic deeds, claim that they all preach the Buddha Dharma? They are not true leavers of home, and are not ordained Hinayana bhiksus. They deceive an incalculable number of living beings, causing them to fall into the realm of unintermittent hells. After my nirvana, if there is a bhiksu who, in token of his determination to practice samadhi, lights in front of an image of the Tathagata, a torch planted in his body, or burns a bone of his finger or an incense stick inserted in his flesh, I say he will thus repay all his karmic debts. Since the time without beginning, will leave the worldly way forever and will escape from the stream of transmigration, for although he has not yet attained supreme bodhi, his mind is already set decisively on the Dharma. However, without these small sacrifices, even if he realizes something, he will be reborn as a human being and will have to repay his former debts, as I did when I had to eat the grain fed to horses. Then you should teach worldly men who practice samadhi not to steal. This is called the Buddha profound teaching of the third decisive deed. Ananda, if stealing is not stopped, the practice of dhyana samadhi is like pouring water into a vessel which will never hold it in spite of the passing of eons countless as dust. If this bhiksu does not keep garments in excess of what he needs, gives to others all food in excess of his requirement, joins his two palms to salute the community and regards as praise abuse and blows that as if he is ready to give away his own flesh, bones and blood, and if he does not pose as an expert interpreter of the expedient incomplete doctrine and does not teach it to beginners in order not to mislead them, the Buddha will seal his realization of samadhi. This teaching of mine is that of the Buddha, whereas any other is that of evil demons. Prohibition against lying. Ananda, if living beings in the 6 worlds of existence, after cleansing their bodies and minds from killing, stealing and carnality, continue to lie, they will fail to realize samadhi and will become demons, filled with pride and prejudice. As a result, they will lose the Tathagata seed and, in their search for worldly fame, will claim that they have achieved and realized what really they have not. They boast of their realization of the states of Shroda Apana, Sakardagaman, Anagaman, Arhat, and Pratyeka Buddha and the 10 stages of Bodhisattva development, in order to attract believers who will make offerings to them for the atonement of sins. These unbelievers, I.C. Chantika, will destroy the Buddha seed as easily as cutting into the trunk of a palm with a sharp chopper, to stop it from growing. The Buddha predicts that these people will destroy their excellent roots, will not regain common sense, will sink into the 3 oceans, realms, of suffering and will never achieve samadhi. I now command bodhisattvas and arhats to appear, in the Dharma ending age after my nirvana, in all appropriate transformation bodies to save those caught in the wheel of samsara. They should come as monks, lay disciples, princes, ministers, boys, girls, and even as prostitutes, widows, rogues, thieves, butchers, peddlers, etc., to keep company with them and praise the Buddha Dharma in their presence so as to convert them and urge them to practice it. In so doing they should not disclose that they are true bodhisattvas and arhats. They will not reveal to beginners the Buddha's esoteric cause, but when they are about to die, they will secretly show some proof of their enlightenment, to increase their disciple-see faith in the Dharma. How then can such persons deceive living beings by telling deliberate lies? You should teach worldly men who practice samadhi not to lie. This is called the Buddha profound teaching of the 4th decisive deed. Ananda, if lying is not stopped, the practice of dhyana samadhi is like copying in excrement a sandalwood statue and expecting it to be fragrant, which is impossible. I teach the bhiksus to develop a straightforward mind, which is the temple of enlightenment, bodhimandala, and to be righteous in their common acts of daily life, while walking, standing, sitting and reclining. How can a liar pretend that he has realized the supreme dharma? This is like a poor man proclaiming himself a king. He will only invite trouble and misfortune. Still less can he usurp the throne of the king of the law. If the causal ground is false, its fruit will be distorted, and the quest of Buddha enlightenment will become impossible. If a bhiksu develops a mind as straight as a lute string and is truthful under all circumstances, he will avoid, in his practice of samadhi, all troubles caused by the demon. I will seal his realization of the bodhisattva's supreme bodhi. This teaching of mine is that of the Buddha, whereas any other one is that of evil demons.